Hello, and welcome to our panel on sibling and expansion teams. One team, multiple robots, or whatever you'd like to call it. Big program, one or more FRC members. So we've got a great cross-section of folks across teams who have expanded their programs in some way. Before we jump in to kind of the nuance of sibling teams, just to provide some context and obviously some introductions, we'd like for each of you to introduce yourselves, what team you're from, and then just some basics of your sibling team, expansion team program.
Hi, so I'm Harrison Drake. I'm the head technical mentor for Team 111 Wildstein and Team 112 Plus One. We are sibling teams from Township High School District 214, which is northwest suburbs of Chicago. All in, we're about 75 kids, 15 mentors, and we encompass 7 high schools to make up our team. Which it's 214 is kind of a situation where it's only high schools in the district. There are no middle or elementary schools, so just take that for a little bit of context. The way we subdivide our team is basically a 10-year division. So our first and second year team students are assigned to 112 for the first 2 years, and then they graduate up to 111, which is the third and fourth year tenured students. So yes, that does mean we sometimes have like freshmen and juniors on 112. That's just kind of par for the course, right? They're at similar levels of experience. All in, our mentor staff, our shop space, our budget, our meeting hour, everything. Even some of the designs that like on a mechanism level are shared between the teams. But outside of that, there are 2 effectively fully independently designed, built, tested, iterated robots out there.
Hi, I'm Mary. I'm a mentor for Spectrum and Photon. I am the lead technical mentor for Photon. And on Spectrum, we have Spectrum and Photon, but everyone is on Spectrum and everyone is on Photon too. And like, the newest students are gonna be on Photon, so like he said, like sometimes there's juniors on Photon, that's fine too. We've had a senior on Photon who just wasn't ready to do Spectrum stuff and just have a great last senior year, and they were on that team. And we have about 50 students, and we have 4 technical mentors. And then, let's see, what's cool about Photon is that we are in Texas districts, and we only compete at 2 district events. We make sure that even if we make it into Texas district champs, we only let Spectrum go because any Photon student is going to be able to go with Spectrum anyway, so we want to take a slot from a team. And then, let's see, all students are on both teams, and then first year teams on Photon, all the first year students on Photon, and then let's see, in the previous years our robots have been pretty different. Recently they have been pretty closely aligned. Last year we had the same drivetrain, and then this year we had the same drivetrain and the same elevator. We had a different mechanism, so it's less complicated.
Hi, I'm Israel. We are 321 and 427, which is around 100 students combined, depending on the day, 15-ish mentors. We pull only from single school. 321 is returning members, 427 is all first-year members. This is our second year doing a 2-team program. Last year we ran some returning members on 427, which we'll get into later, but is not our plan moving forward. I have a much less detailed slide. Essentially, we run 2 teams at the exact same time, in the exact same space, but they're fully separate. Members are on one team or another, and they build entirely separate robots. We do compete at the same events right now, and both teams would be allowed to go to the DCMP if 427 qualified this year.
All right, everybody, Michael Wright from Team Screen and Team Screen Junior, 4522, 4766. We are a one town, one big high school, and we share all the spaces. We've got about 60 members, 60 students on our team with 14 members across both. Everybody on our, we say that we are one program, one team, and we build 2 robots and compete with 2 of them. So everybody's a member of Team Screen. The only distinguishing factor of that is when we go to competitions, when we register our students for Team Screen Junior, they build their own robot. So that split officially happens right after kickoff when we see the game, and they go on their separate way of design and build. We build our own, 4522 builds our own, we share the same space and all the same resources. Generally speaking, all of our 9th and 10th graders are on junior, and everybody else, juniors and seniors, are on and screen. So we share a big facility for that.
Hey, my name is Mullen Iyengar. I'm with 4795 B Spots and 4861 B Spots. Our split is pretty, inspired by Spectrum. We saw what they did, and we figured it works for them, probably good enough for us. So, fairly similar. We got 70 kids and 8 mentors across all the resources are shared. We try to operate as one team building 2 robots. All the outreach happens under the B Spots hat, and it's just B Spots shows up to events with the second robot. So they're building every bot or rev starter bot every year, and we are pretty flexible on who is on which team. Obviously, our new students tend to gravitate towards these spots, but we have a second-year student assigned to help lead them, and then a few other second and third-year students, either working with them or mentoring them. The line gets a little bit fuzzy there, and then everyone is on eSpots, and eSpots is the team that can advance to the district champs and champs, and all of the eSpots students come to us.
One day I'll get this to work. Cool. And my name is Libby Kamen. I'm your moderator. I'm the lead mentor for Team 1923. One of the reasons I'm excited to contribute to this discussion is in 2022, we did a second team as well. We did 1914. We did one of the, everybody's registered to both teams. The goal for us was after COVID, how can we, so we had 172 students that year. So how can we, I love that range. We have 155 this year, but after COVID, we really wanted to capture how can we get as many students at event, experience as possible. We were already building, practice bots and development bots, but how can we have more competition experiences? We did not choose to continue the 1914 program just because of some of the stuff about rostering that we'll get into in a minute. We are currently using 1914 potentially as an off-season robot, a freshman development concept, but we're not registering 1914 for FRC in season at this time. Might change, we'll see. So I just wanted to make sure I introduce myself as well, alongside our awesome panelists. I talked about Midnight's Why, and what I'd love to hear from you guys, I guess I'll kind of quick game back to the slides, but along with how it works, what was the prompt for your team to go into a sibling or an expansion team program? I don't know if you want to go down the line or maybe.
You're in charge.
Oh, don't give me that kind of power. I guess down the line.
I can start. So 112 kind of spun off as a result of our, during the COVID years, right? The main FRC competition was IR at home, which a lot of people went with. It was something different, but we really wanted to make sure that we were maximizing the amount of education we can give our kids during that COVID period, right? So we completely reformatted our entire program to do a 4-team intramural, COVID era competition where they designed a robot in the fall, and then everyone competed with it, built it and competed with it in the spring. Which, in the context of COVID, let us make decisions about shop hours and tool accessibility, stuff like that, as the situation developed. Ultimately, we ended up building 5 robots that year, so we had our 4 fuel goal robots and our IR at home robot. And the big takeaway that I think everyone involved with the program had after that year was, we need to get it was the student to robot ratio, right? How many hands on each individual robot? Normally, we float around 75 kids to one robot. That's what previous 111 teams have done. We ended up going down to about 15 to 1 for that intramural competition, and just kind of decided, based on seeing how that went, what the workloads were, that we wanted to target a 30 to 1 ratio, so 30 kids, 1 robot. Right now, we sit right around the 30 to 35 number per team. But I mean, that was the real impetus, was making sure that we had enough robot for the amount of people we had.
I would say ours is exactly the same. It was 2021, we decided to do an intramural competition. We split into 4 teams, and we said, hey, we watched students that were freshmen and sophomores that normally wouldn't have gotten the same experience until their junior or senior year, take ownership of a robot, and had a lot of fun. And we said, we can't go back to 1 robot. And so we made the decision to go to 2 teams next year.
For Spectrum, we did it straight out of COVID too. And we made the team in the first place just so we could have more students at the event, because during we had Texas Cup in 2021 or something, and they only allowed 10 students per team to be at the event. So we're like, oh, we could just register another team, and we had 10 more students at the event. And then it just became that we wanted to cover that gap between students who join, trying to get them keep them interested, because it's hard to get students interested if they don't know why they're doing this. So Photon is really great because when you're on Photon, you get to be on drive team. We have a rotating drive team, and so all the students are going to be on drive team, and they're going to keep going because they're like, oh, maybe when I'm a junior, senior, I'll be on drive team again. It was really great. I know why we're in the pit. I know why everyone's rushing. I know the purpose of the competition, and it just lets them see like why we're doing all this. So lots of more hands on the robot.
We started talking about splitting just over 2 years ago. Last year was our first year with 2 teams. Coming out of COVID, we had over 100 students, depending on how you count it. We used to have an FRC team and several FTC teams. At our peak, we were 168 students, 6 FTC teams, 1 FRC team, and 3 adults on a good day. It was a train wreck. I don't recommend it. So at our district championship 2 years ago, I sat down with our lead mentor and I said, I have a really good idea. Let's start a second FRC team. And he almost fired me. And then he didn't. We talked about it some more, and we landed on 2 teams for a number of reasons. I think that everyone here has a similar story, but a different impetus for it. Right now, we are super, super happy with running an all-rookie team as our development team, junior varsity team, whatever you want to call it. We've seen so many more students who wouldn't get an opportunity to be involved develop serious skills their first year. Our hope in the past was you might be decent at CAD as a junior. You've gotten some time, maybe worked on a mechanism, and in your senior year on a team of 160, you'll finally get your chance to really do something. And now on 427, 2 weeks in the build season, there's kids designing mechanisms from scratch with help. And I don't think that we could ever replicate that with 160 kids in one team, so it's been a total win for us.
Yeah, for us in 2022, we kind of saw our first bit of success organizationally, competitively, and we were at 25 kids. 2023, and we've got 90 kids, and we figured they would tail off, but they kept showing up. And with 2 to 3 mentors per day and 90 kids, absolute train wreck. And I don't think we did a good job giving those students a good experience that year. And we were just constantly on the back foot trying to find ways of engaging students. So for 2023 or 2024, we started the second team after a lot of discussion about do we just run a team that built a robot without competing. So we ended up on just registering the second team, and then as well as trying to get our numbers down to about 70. So we're about, I'd say, 35 to 1. And yeah, same deal. We had so many students never touch a robot, and I don't think we could go back with the number of kids we have now.
So it sounds like there's a lot of, I think as Ryan captured very well, there's a lot of similar kind of purposes and a different nuance in how to kind of organize that for your own organization. So if you're here because you thought about, we have a lot of folks who are looking for that experience and I'm trying to expand. I'm gonna tag on Mullen on the direct kind of the rules and logistics of how this works. I am no longer in the dual team trenches, so I will defer to y'all on how this stuff works. So please go ahead and explain.
Yeah, so I think there are very few rules around how you actually do this, and I've tried to capture the ones that there are. So, yes, you can do this. Students can be on multiple teams. The only real rule is that they can only be on one team per event. So you just have to go into the roster and select students per event. Does that matter? Not really. It only matters for games listed by game, basically. Team numbers, there have been cases where, teams have gotten like a pool number. That tends to either be good timing or coincidence. By and large, the way it works is that when you do this, the sibling team is registered as a new veteran who is eligible for all the new team grants. The NASA grant, the new team grant, at least as of last year, sibling teams were eligible for. And you're assigned basically whatever the closest number that first doesn't have registered for anything. So we got 48620. And the way funding works, I think for a lot of us, the second team has been, at least for the first few years, B-Spots bought all of the E-Spots grants, is how I'll say that. All of the new team funding and the doubling up on grants with Gene Haas, learning that a lot of the big FRC sponsors they're per team, not per organization. Some are per organization, so check the rules on that, but funding I think was much easier than we thought it would be.
Spectrum has only ever made money off of Photon at this point. Every year when we're doubling up the grants, only ever made money from having Photon exist.
In terms of logistics for how these things worked with you all, I know you talked about different, roster situations, 9th and 10th, new people. Any other kind of key logistics that stick out to you guys as important in terms of if someone's going to do this at the end of, May is when registration reopens, you're super inspired, you loved this panel, so you go register your team. What else matters in terms of how you guys have run this?
I want to really highlight this link here, this slideshow in public later. You can Google it as well. First has very few rules, but the ones that do exist are on the rules around splits and combinations. And there's 4 main ways that the team can split, and there's like a flow chart for it. Are you angry or are you happy? And do you want to be the same team or different teams? One of the really interesting things is that when a team splits, the split teams usually retain a shared award history. There's a special class of team that's that new veteran team. So you're not a rookie, you don't get rookie points, but you do get rookie money. You're allowed to do most things. You can opt out of the kit of parts stuff, but you can't submit for impact. It's not consistent, and those rules really do matter. Technically, 427 would have been a pre-qualified Hall of Fame team because they split from us after 3211. Then the rules changed. Read that document, super clear.
Yes, the component about the rosters per team per event is also a team did it, and then the rules changed. So what we had done on 1923 and 1914 was all 172 students were registered to each number. We all worked at home on twin robots, and we went to events with not 172, not all of them, but most of them with those twins and made a little mega pit. It was really cute. Going back to 10 by 10 was so sad. And at that point in time, we had like a singular shirt that said 1923, 1914. We tried, from our perspective, culturally, to say, this is one program, and we happen to be registering 2 robots that you all have worked very hard on. There's very different ways of doing that. I'm hearing different development timelines, and I want to talk about that a little bit. One of the things with the first rules and logistics, and again, that document about how teams split and become second teams is very important. First we'll hold you to it. It helps dictate how your numbers are assigned and things like that. But beyond the rules, right, first has very few rules and we have to follow them. Beyond that, if your team has set a goal to do the thing, there is not a one-size-fits-all answer to sibling teams. I think that's why we're trying to talk about how this is working for each of our programs. There is not one singular first approved right way to do it, no matter who tells you that on Chief Delphi. If a team is meeting their own goals and following the rules that do exist, that is okay and good and probably a very positive thing for your students. So, all right, I've set my goals, I know how I want to meet my goals, and I'm thinking about these logistics. As I'm planning how I'm gonna lay out my dual team, what are some of the pitfalls or things that you've had to navigate in terms of not just the logistics of the team, but culturally? How do you make sure they're good at sharing shop space? Or, I have a whole list here. Are they mentoring each other as peers? What does the, not just the head count of your team look like, what does the culture of that dual team really look like for you guys?
Culturally, this was the biggest obstacle for us as a program running 2 teams. Our first year, we ran the program with Junior. We limited their scope and said, hey, build a simple robot. And then they had a great year. Then we said, okay, well, our junior team is going to be the team that builds an okay robot. And then, we don't expect a lot out of them. And then next year, they kicked our butt. They beat us in 2 regionals. And so that caused a lot of friction on our team. I was like, this is getting ready to turn into a bad thing. And so one of the things that we've talked about from a team standpoint is that we are one team, one program, and a win for any of us is a win for our school, for our teams, and those kind of, that's been huge. They still have conversations every year and revisit those, but it's all about managing expectations and knowing that, hey, this is robotics, anything can happen and anybody can win. So that was a big learning experience.
Yeah, just to tail off that, I mean, when we set up 112, we very specifically we're coming in from the mindset of like there is only one league of FRC. There is no JV varsity divide, right? It's all the same competition. So why would we treat our teams any differently, right? So the Wild Second program is fortunate to be able to do 2 full original ground up robot designs every year. Not every program has that bandwidth or those resources, but we came in from the standpoint of if we want to maximize learning for our kids, right? It's a lot more than just having them build a robot. They also need to know how to design it, right? So that immediately it was okay. So we're just running 2 full-blown FRC varsity programs, which means 112 might be 111. It happened twice in Midwest this year. There's going to be a day when 112 walks onto the banner and 111 doesn't. I'm waiting for it, but it's the internal culture is very much try to learn off each other, try to help each other, but still try to beat each other on the field, right? So.
For Spectrum, it's a little different from the 2 teams that we just talked, but for Spectrum, it's really fun because both teams are encouraging each other. So Photon, this is actually the first year where every single student on the team has basically gone through the Photon program. And the seniors see the new Photon students and they're excited for them. They're like, I went through exactly what you did, so they're all cheering each other on. And then the Photon students want to be like the Spectrum students and they're all cheering each other on. So for our first event, we're alone, and then second event, we are together, so we have the double pit. And in that double pit, the Spectrum students are teaching the Photon students how to fix their own robot. They're teaching them how to do different things in the pit and like get used to it. And then even when we're against each other in elims, which happened, we were just cheering on each other from the different sides of the driver's station. So Spectrum was on that side and we were over here and we're just making faces. And then when they cheer on, they announce Spectrum, Photon is cheering for Spectrum, and then when they announce Photon, Spectrum is cheering for Photon. So we're all just a big happy group. We know that ultimately the goal of the program is for Spectrum to succeed, but we know that having Photon win is going to make the students feel better about their robot and about the program.
Yeah, we put a lot of time into thinking about how we want to manage this, interteam dynamic, and it is changing. Last year, B-Spots built a tank drive bot that was, illegal at its first event in so many ways. This year, B-Spots beat E-Spots at our second event, so we had, that sort of, we learned about some new friction and how we handle things like pick listing in the shared pit when both teams are, capable of making deep playoff runs. So definitely some learning there, but I think what makes it work for us is we have a lot of our, I think especially I see that the students who were on B-Spots last year are spending a lot of time with the B students, and we have sort of, one of our newer mentors is just taking charge of B-Spots. We run pretty lean on mentors, but having that consistent mentor there who's, always looking out for, B's interest and making sure that when we're doing resource allocation, we don't have equal resource allocation, right? B-Spots tends to get B-Spots hand-me-downs. And I think we sometimes can go too far on we don't have enough resources and too much of it gets allocated to E-Spots. And I think that's somewhere where we've had to learn, how do you prioritize where priorities need to be given limited resources, but also make sure that the students who are on the, sort of getting the hand-me-downs are still getting enough support and, to do what they need to do and succeed.
I'm not going to tell the full story right now. We can talk about it after the panel. But last year was really, really, really hard for our teams, culturally. 427 was 40-ish students with 9 or so returning members. They had 1 year FRC experience, and they were seated on the JV team as officers, leaders, role models, whatever the word is. And the theory was that they were going to be able to set the culture and the tempo for that team and keep things on track. And instead it turned into 10 kids with 1 year of experience running a team, dragging themselves forward. And they learned so much from that experience, but also I think that it lowered the learning opportunities for the new members. And coming out of the season, 427 students, both new and returning, were saying, I don't want to go back to 3-2-1. We really like our team. We are better than 3-2-1, which was true. By EPA, Robo Lancers down here, and 427 was top 400. Not excellent. They didn't make it to Worlds, but they were a viable team at the district championship where 3-2-1 did not get picked. And no one wanted to go back to doing that. And there's a lot of very long conversations and tears about the bigger picture. And we eventually came to the decision that yes, these returning members are going to move back to 321 and take the culture that they helped build and spread that on 321. This is not a solved problem. It's a conversation that continues to happen. I'm certain that there will be a long conversation on the floor at some point this week about how these teams are going to work next year. And I don't think that's bad. It's just one of the things to be aware of. This is not a seamless or flawless process, and there will be problems.
Yeah, I think, well, what's very funny is that was going to be the next question, is navigating that sort of hierarchy thing. So, woo, check. I think it's something that you really have to, and maybe this is the, the cautionary tales here, is if you're here because you're thinking about starting an expansion team in some way, think about how you want to tackle that and set that tone culturally ahead of time, right? So that was what we did with 1923, 1914, was we had a big meeting with all this. First of all, we talked with our leaders about it and said, do you want to do this? This is very heavy. The big team, our leadership team alone is about 25 to 30 students, and they're sort of the directors of different departments. So we said, do you want to do this? We think it's cool. It's great for us. Are you ready to do that? And the tone we tried to set was, this is all one thing, and everyone's going to have their own version of that, right? What does that look like for your program? But if this is what you're thinking about, being aware of these potential cultural things, what we learned it from was we had FTC teams for a long time that were 7th and 8th grade, and we had students who would come out of 8th grade and into 9th grade and say, I just want to stay on FTC because I'm having fun, and I'm one of 15, not one of 150. And then our 2 FTC teams would fight over parts and go, that's mine, and like truly, as 7th graders might, a little challenge. So we didn't want to keep that energy into a dual FRC program. So that was what we kind of planned ahead. So if this is something that's on your mind, it might be something to think about the current space within your team. I want to go a little bit logistical in terms of how you guys run your teams at events. So starting with things like judging. One of the things that a lot of dual teams get critiqued for or get feedback on is, well, that's not fair, you get 2 judging interviews. Well, yeah, they're 2 teams, they paid 2 registrations. And in a lot of cases, they're running as different programs. So how do you run things like, we talked about Dean's List, submitting for impact, what your general kind of technical submissions look like as well?
Yeah, so we look at it from the mindset of, it's the Wildstone Robotics program that happens to have 2 FRC teams in it. It could be 3 someday, it could go back to 1. So with that, had we not created 112, our stance was we would only have 1 impact judging session. We would only have 2 Dean's List submissions. We would only have 1 Woody Flowers essay. So we carried that through as, the 2-1-1, right, for both teams. So what that means is every award that we submit gets submitted as a 111 student due to that rostering discussion earlier, that 112 kids aren't on the 111 roster. That even carries up into our impact presentation. So this year we've had 112 students in the 111 impact judging, just as to kind of tie it all together that this is the Wildstone Robotics program presenting, not 111, not 112 individually. That you're going to see that that's not true for everyone up on the stage. That's just how we approached it.
For Spectrum, when we do impact judging, we only submit impact for Spectrum, because for our program, our ultimate goal is to make Spectrum better. Photon is there to help students succeed and become better students so that they can succeed on Photon. And we don't really, if Photon wins an award, we're like, that's awesome, but our ultimate goal isn't for them to be winning impact or winning all these awards. And one thing we really like is that with 2 teams, you can do 4 Dean's List students, and then you can do 2 Woody Flowers. We like to think that this is a perk for all of it. We have so many amazing students that having 2 extra students be able to do Dean's List is amazing, and we get to do another mentor for Woody Flowers. So we have, at our 2 individual events, we have 1 event where only Spectrum plays and 1 event that only Photon plays. So at those 2 events, we have 2 Dean's List students there and 2 Dean's List at the other ones. And then for Woody Flowers, it's just, we do that one at our joint event because it's cool to have 2 mentors up there.
We're not totally settled on what we're going to do with this long term. Because 321's not allowed to present for impact because we just won in that championship 2 years ago, 427, it feels wrong to say thank you first for these rules. We're going to give the same presentation again. It's not right. So we're not presenting for impact. This year we were eligible, last year we were not. We're still choosing not to. But both teams have pit judged award strategies that we try to execute on at events, because that's our goal for 321. We want to emulate that behavior and intentionality of 427. We are also nominating 2 students for each team for Dean's List, a mentor for each for Woody Flowers. The choice of event may change in the future. That's not a huge thought for us, but maybe I need to put more thought into that. And then at events, like I said before, each team is their own team. We do have pits next to each other. We started out with the pits facing in towards each other, so it was a 10 by 20 pit, and it was bad, really bad. I know Libby's deeply
Mega Pit hater? Mega Pit's great.
It turned into the team that packed for both teams. The other team was along for the ride. Last year, 427 was the team that had the things they needed. 321 was like, you guys have tread? I didn't have any screwdrivers. It was terrible. So letting each team own that operation has value for the team, for the students we found. And then when things go south, yes, you can steal things from the team. That may change in the future. That's where we're at right now.
Yeah, for us, we're saying we're one program, so we apply for impact through screen. We do submit 2 Woody Flowers, one for each team, because we have dedicated coaches and mentors that work specifically with each of those teams, and we prep them to have their own judge awards in the pits. One of the things that we found in our first year, we had the all-black team screen junior shirt had both numbers on it, and the judges made comments that we couldn't distinguish which team we were talking to, so we were very intentional about whenever we're there every day. One's wearing black, one's wearing gold, and they swap, and they have different colors, and so you can tell them apart which one they're doing.
We also do, well, anywhere from 0 to 1 impact submissions, but only eSpots ever applies for impact, only eSpots ever does outreach. I actually don't know what these kids say in judging when they're asked about outreach. I should check on that. But it should be, but we don't do any. So we do anywhere from 2 to 3 Dean's List nominations total. I think it depends on the year. Some years we have an amazing student on eSpots who really meets our requirements for that. But sometimes this year we did 2 Woody Flowers awards. So we're flexible on that. I think on Dean's List and Woody Flowers, one thing we're not is impact and outreach. Because we really don't want fights over who's outreach, stealing, all of that. That is, we're really trying to avoid that.
Yeah, go ahead.
I also want to say that I think most of these teams here have 2 different shirts for their teams. Spectrum only has 1. Yeah, they have the same shirts too? Oh. Big coordinate. For Spectrum, we don't have enough space to have inventory for 2 shirts. So all students wear Spectrum shirts, and the only merch that we have for Photon to distinguish who is judging, because we also got the confusion, they're like, oh, are we talking to Photon students or Spectrum students? So we only have our bucket hats, they're reversible, so we have Photon on one side and Spectrum on the other side. So it's still Spectrum merch, but this is the only official Photon merch to distinguish.
That's my favorite thing ever. That's delightful. Yeah, we also got the same thing when we did 1923, 1914, because we did the shirt where the 1923 goes, we put 2 numbers. That was the whole thing. And the critique that we got at our first event was it's very confusing who we're talking to. At our second event, they asked us to, make buttons or something that says, I'm on 1914, so that our pit folks were easily identifiable. I think with the way they've changed, the way they want students to be rostered to one team or another at a specific event, you kind of make your own way on how you want to differentiate that, but it is important because we had an additional problem in the year that we did it, in that we did twin robots. So technical judges were like, who did this? We don't know. We were told in the future, if we continue the dual team, that we should differentiate in some way. If we bring it back, that's what we'll do. We'll probably do separate, taking a lot of inspiration from these folks, honestly. But that is something to think about, is how those teams are identified at the event, because in first eyes, they are 2 numbers and they are 2 teams, right? If you're just straight up looking at a piece of paper or a team check-in list, first system doesn't know those 2 numbers mean you, especially in a judging situation. It's just that those numbers are 2 team numbers that are here at this event. My final of the pre-schedule questions, which is actually taken from our Chief Health thread. So yay. Dehydrated if you're either here or watching. Thanks for asking. How do you guys do, yeah, please hydrate. How do you guys do pick listing or strategy meetings if both teams are in a position to be alliance captain?
I'll go first. We say yes. We don't pick people. We're not that good.
2024 World Champions 2, 3, 2, 1.
We run our scouting as one program. We generate the pick list, and the last several regions we've been to together, screens usually up high, and juniors in the top 8, so it's all the same stuff. But again, it's back to that cultural thing where we're sharing information, we share scouting, and I guess I want to clarify. We have 5 sub teams. We have engineering, we have programming, we have a strategy team, we have a BizCom team, and then something else. But we have those 5 programs. Really, when it comes to the team, though, the teams that are on junior, they are only split up on the engineering and the programming side. And so we share scouts, we share strategy, we share all our BizCom, we have a fabrication team. The fabricators, they do all the CNC machining and they make all the parts for both teams. So we share information.
Yeah, so our split actually kind of starts on kickoff. So we actually do a rule manual read first thing off the top. And then after that, the teams are physically separated from each other. And some of the mentors into a 111 and 112 kickoff strategy meeting. That same mentality carries into competition. So scouting is by far the biggest manpower effort that happens at an event to get data collection from all that. So we scout as a program, 111 and 112 together. But all the data analysis, pick list meetings, all that is completely independent of the hotels. To the point of, this is sort of our culture point as well, but we try to make it very clear that there is no 111 picking 112, 112 picking 111 expectation, right? You go into those strategy meetings with the understanding that you need to make the best choice coming out of those, not the friendliest choice. That's just team policy. We don't want to get any accusations of collusion or anything like that at any of our events. So firm line right down the middle, separating entirely.
Yeah, I think the ideal for this is for us, and we had some issues with this at our second event where Beast was outranking East, and Beast might have had to do a scorch and then pick East, and it would have been a bit of a mess. But we try to wall it off, and we're going to evolve that. But I think we're terrified of both the idea that a Beast student would benefit East spot, would put East spots over B spots, right? We want when we're one team with 2 robots, but when you're on the field against each other or pick listing, B spots needs to try to win for themselves, right? So we try to wall it off a little bit and make sure that the expectations are very, very clear. B spots will not advance past district champ, past the 2 district events, but you still, if that means you knock E spots out of district champs or you knock an event win off for E spots, you do that, right? So we make sure that we have students who are, in the right mind and competitive on that, and then I think we just try to separate strategy enough that there's no if you do this, it'll be better for the program as a whole, though you are picking 4 E spots.
For Spectrum and Photon, we only have one event that we're there together. But the one event, we all scout together, and then we have our scouting meeting together. And then, honestly, a lot of the Photon students don't really know what's going on during the scouting meeting, and it's one of their first ones. So anything that's happening during the meeting is mostly the Spectrum students and the mentors figuring out our pick list. And then Photon kind of just reaps the benefits from all the pick lists, because our pick list is the same as Spectrum's pick list, which gets really awkward when Spectrum takes the pick that Photon takes the pick that Spectrum wants. So that kind of happened this past our past Houston district event. So we're thinking maybe we might split up the pick list. But as of right now, most of it is just we use the Spectrum's pick list, and then we're like, oh, we got them, and then Spectrum's like, dang.
Yeah, I think it could be interesting to navigate. When we did 1914, obviously when they did it for one season, and the robots were the same. Our first event, we picked each other because that was the best robot on our data on the sheet. That was just the other best robot at the event, and we didn't do so hot. And then our next event, we picked the best robot that we had in our data. which was our other team, and we won the event. And then our two ended up against each other in the district championship finals. And there's two very wholesome gifts of, obviously they were twin robots, they were twin autons, so they ran into each other in the back. And they just sort of like gave each other a bump. It was very cute. And it is matched equally by a gift from right before the match where the two drive coaches are hugging, like right before the finals in the same spot on the field. Like, it's very cute. But culturally, it is weird because playoffs is where emotions get really, really high. So the bonus question to strategy pick listing is, has there been a situation where you've been against each other, and like, how do you want to manage that culturally? What have you learned from managing that culturally? Because I know for us, one of our teams won district championship and the other one didn't. So all Midnight Adventures won and all of them lost. And very specifically, that one drive team took it very hard because they were the one that didn't. And so managing that was a lesson for me in mentoring, because how do you, it was tough, right? How do you manage that? And have you guys had, you don't have to all line to go down the line if you haven't had this happen, but if you have, how do you manage it?
So we just Midwest Week 5, 112 knocks 111 out, match 11, sends in match 13. Then 111 wins match 13, so we have a 111 versus 112 Midwest Regional Finals. That place exploded when that happened, especially when 112 took the first finals match. So I don't think there was any bad blood between the teams, but just the fact that was happening, I mean, that was everything we could have hoped for, right? Two successful programs, duking it out on the field, with honestly no clue who was going to go home with that banner that day. If that happens every year, I'll be stoked.
Yeah, I had this story earlier about junior winning 2 regionals in a row, where Scream was the #1 ranking about 2 regionals in a row and got knocked out by our team. So that was, after we kind of processed through how that looks, then we just started having fun with it. We say, hey guys, don't overlook anybody, and if you're in a spot to pick Jimmy, you probably should pick him. And then this year, we went up against each other in 2 regionals. In our pits, we have the big super pit. We take a fun picture. We're all just kind of putting the dukes up, getting ready, brother versus brother, and stuff like that. So it's just been a fun thing for us. But we've had to work through those growing pains and just turn it into something. Hey, this is great for both of us.
We actually went against each other in elims, like I said earlier. We were just cheering for each other. It was very wholesome. We even went on the field together and we all took a selfie. And we know that when we go against each other, that we are going to try our best. There's no reason, like Photon, we're not trying to we're never sandbagging so Spectrum can win. We're just trying our best on each side, but we know that Spectrum is supposed to be the better robot, so they're probably going to win, so we both just have a great time about it.
So not only did we actually have a sibling team rivalry, but because we're split by tenure, we have literal siblings playing each other. So I'm looking at the grins right now. So yeah, Eddie's our 112 driver and Julia's our 111 FEMA player. We're playing each other at the glass. So.
Okay. I just want to make sure you have it. So I do want to leave if we're 43, so I've got a little bit of time.
90 seconds.
Yeah, it's fine. I want to leave some time for folks. If you have questions, definitely let us know. But any other things we haven't touched on, lessons learned, things you want to share from your journey navigating a dual team, sibling team, whatever you want to call it, what nugget of wisdom have you not shared yet that you want these folks to hear?
For our program, we truly did start it as a developmental team, and we learned a lot from Spectrum and from Coach Norman, 2468, and took a lot of information from them. So there's a lot of great resources out there already, so feel free to ask us any questions. But one of the key takeaways that we've learned as a program is, Scream is always designed to get on Einstein. We're trying to compete at the highest level. And every year we always say, man, what would it take to just build that super simple robot? The one that more people should build. And we said, let's encourage Junior to build it. And that's why we limit their scope. They overreached a little bit this year, but when you turn them into the simple scope of, hey, be the best Q bot in the world right there. That's a little bit more manageable than do it at all. And so we have seen huge success out of our junior team by limiting their scope and encouraging them to be super focused and simple. And a lot of times that puts them in a winning position at regionals. The other thing, this might be a question for you guys too, I was concerned this year about qualifying for Worlds and how we're going to register both teams. Because we're all registered for Team Scream, so when I did the hotel rooms, we were pre-qualified, so we went ahead and registered for everybody for Scream. But then I was like, man, if junior qualifies, what am I going to have to do with this rooming list and everything else? And so, unfortunately, they did not qualify this year, but I didn't have to deal with that. But somebody's dealing with that now. Yeah.
The fortunately is so lead mentor coded. Like, whew, all right, they're all go. It's fine.
There is like a weird, like, when I say we, sometimes I'm referring to E spots and B spots, sometimes just E spots, and I have to watch myself when I say we.
Final remarks. Please ask questions. We're going to be shooed out of the room 30 seconds ago. Let's roll outside. If anyone wants to talk, we're going to walk outside of the hallway, and then we're going to be there. Let's do Q&A without microphones.